Hey, friends, welcome to a special Thursday edition of Private Club Radio. We missed our Tuesday show for you coming on Thursday because there was the National Club Conference that was happening down in Key Largo. We've actually got Joe Trauger of the National Club Association here today to talk about what happened down there, as well as what the NCA is doing in terms of government relations and the policy that they're working on right now in Washington, D.C. We're going to bring Joe on here in just a second. But before I do, just wanted to give a big thanks and a shout out to sponsors of this show, the friends and the partners that we have here on Private Club Radio. First off, Concert Golf Partners, who help private clubs with equity. If you've got concerns or needs or someone you need to talk to, Peter and his team are fantastic. You can reach them at concertgolfpartners.com. Also, a big shout out to last week's guest who was on, which is Brian Friedrichs of Capstone Hospitality. Capstone helps clubs with their sales and marketing. And Brian was on talking about how they helped a club in Pensacola, Florida. It was a great story. If you haven't seen last week's episode, highly recommend you go back. You can check it out here on the LinkedIn feed or YouTube or wherever you're watching and see last week's episode. But the tips that came from Pensacola Country Club and the general manager that we spoke to there were so fantastic in terms of not only how to build your sales and marketing for your club, but really, what do you do when you've got a new influx of members? Because that's what happened to a lot of clubs over the last year and a half. They've taken a lot of members, and we want to make sure that they stick around past, when everything kind of is starting to get back to normal here. We want to make sure that they stick around for many, many years to come. And there were some fantastic tips in that episode. You should go back and watch if you haven't. But today we're talking with another partner of this show, which is the National Club Association. And specifically, we've got Joe Trauger on. Joe, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. So talk to us about the conference. You just had it. You just got your fresh back from it. It looks like you have a tan.
I did manage to get a little bit of sun. So yeah, it was a great location. We were down at the Ocean Reef Club in Key Largo, Florida. And we just concluded on Tuesday, and it was a resounding success. There's lots of excitement about the fact that the industry really hasn't been able to be together in person really since last February. So
right.
This was the first opportunity that many folks had to be in the same room together, and that's always nice to start that up again. So
I bet there was a little buzz in the room from that, huh?
Absolutely, lots of excitement, and just everybody was happy to be together.
That's really cool. That's very cool. And it was probably good timing because Florida had just eased more restrictions right before the conference kicked off too. So it probably was a pretty nice time for folks, I would think.
Yeah, they had. And, I think that's really, we're seeing that, across the country for the most part. Obviously you need to be masked up when you're at the airport and on the airplanes and that kind of thing. But yeah, once you're on the ground and outside of the airport, you're able to shed the mask and be human again.
Yeah, it's refreshing in more ways than one, isn't it? So talk to us about some
Absolutely.
of the highlights from the conference, Joe. I'd love to hear what some of the speakers had to say.
Sure. Yeah, we had a number of notable speakers. I'll exclude myself from that list. But at any rate, we did have the chief economist with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to walk us through kind of what the state of the economy is and what we can see in the future. We also had the former chief of staff of the White House, Mick Mulvaney, that came and talked to us about giving us some insights into the current administration and kind of how the White House works and his perspective on what Congress is up to these days. We also had a visit from sitting Congressman Carlos Jimenez, who represents the 26th District of Florida, which is where the Ocean Reef Club resides. And so it was great to have a congressman to give us, sort of that inside scoop of what's going on in Congress and the sort of push-pull that's happening right now in a number of issues. We also had Dick Grasso, who's the former chairman and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange, talk to us about leadership during crisis, which is obviously a topic that's relevant right now, given that we've all sort of managed our way through what one would certainly call a crisis, with the pandemic. We had Heather Kim, who's the founder of ICON, which is an inclusion and diversity focused nonprofit. consulting organization to talk to us
Cool.
about diversity, equity, and inclusion. John Tolbert with Blackstone Real Estate, Cal Thomas, who's a syndicated columnist. And, we got to walk through the Ocean Reef Club with Richard Weinstein, who's the senior vice president of membership and marketing there. So it was a great lineup, and lots of good discussions about the club community and the issues that we're facing and how to respond to them.
Fantastic, Joe. So that's a perfect segue into the next question here, which is, what are some of the issues that you guys are going to bat for the industry in Washington D.C. on right now, or what's in legislation?
Yeah, sure. Well, on the legislative front, one of the things that I've mentioned to the attendees of the conference is that right now, in terms of legislation, there's not a lot that's really directly affecting the industry, and where we're focused right now is primarily on the regulatory side. So just on Tuesday, the last day of our conference, the Department of Homeland Security announced that. Oh, my dog Nolan's joining us there for
I love it.
a little
Hey, Nolan.
a little appearance there, a little cameo. So Department of Homeland Security announced on Tuesday, or finalized on Tuesday, the addition of 22 additional H-2B visas for seasonal workers.
Nice.
And so that was particularly relevant, since
Right.
that's something that we follow quite closely. Other areas that we're looking at would include, some of the labor issues out of the Department of Labor, so that's always something that we keep an eye on.
Sure. I love doing these live because you never know what's going to happen. So we have a special guest, Nolan, join us. What kind of dog is Nolan?
He's a rescue, and we think he's a cross between a German Shepherd and a yellow lab. So
that's cool. Right on.
Yeah, but in terms of the legislation right now, Congress right now is looking at. They're trying to negotiate an infrastructure package that the president proposed about 2.25 trillion. A couple of months ago. Republicans are going back and forth with different proposals. They came back with about a $600 billion package, and just this morning they're going to offer a revised package that would be somewhere around $1 trillion. In addition to that top line number, there's some real discussion and disagreement on what the actual definition of infrastructure is.
Sure.
Republicans tend to be more on the side of the traditional definition of roads and bridges and that kind of thing. And I think the Democrats' package and the president's package includes what we would call social infrastructure. So things like, childcare, work support, and adult daycare, those types of things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You mentioned, more H-2B visas, and I know, like, at least down here where I'm at in Florida and Tampa, I've been speaking to a lot of different business owners, and it's very, very hard right now to find American labor or just people to work in general. I don't know if that's because the government had been handing out checks all last year and people have forgot what the meaning of work is. But I mean, is that an issue that's affecting the country in a greater way, or is it localized here, would you say?
No, it's definitely affecting folks all across the country. As you know, I just came off being president of my club in Alexandria, Virginia, and we're struggling with the same issues. And I think it's particularly acute in areas like groundskeeping and kitchen staff. So that's definitely having an impact. I just was actually contacted by a member of Congress last week about a piece of legislation he's looking to introduce, and was looking for the National Club Association to support that would reinstate the work search requirements in order to receive unemployment. I think there's been a lot of debate about that extra plus up payment, pandemic unemployment assistance, that $300 per week, and the effect that's having on people, deciding to get back to work. Right. And, I don't think it's really anything that, anybody's suggesting that Americans are lazy. They're certainly not. But, when it comes down to making rational decisions about finances, it makes sense. And, So we need to, in order to make sure that the economy keeps going, we need to make sure that there's no disincentive to going back to work. And
Right.
so that's an issue that is definitely receiving a lot more attention in Washington.
I also would think, I mean, just again being in Florida, which was relatively open for compared to what a lot of
Mhm.
the country experienced, and there was such an influx of people here. Like for instance, in Tampa, the housing market is through the roof, right? Because just like people were flooding out of these northeastern cities and things.
Mhm.
How has that also is that also affecting things in the in terms of clubs, in terms of either staffing clubs or membership levels kind of shifting around the country, or what are you seeing there, Joe?
Yeah, I think with the economy basically moving to a remote sort of situation, people are deciding that they can work remotely from anywhere. So they're trying to decide where it is they want to work from, and even myself, working with the National Club Association, I'm dialing in here from my home in Minnesota,
Mm,
and so I switch time between Minnesota and Washington D.C.
yeah.
Typically, I'll be there in Washington when Congress is in session. But
Hmm.
I think we're finding that with that additional flexibility, with the more people working remotely, you are seeing clubs that are getting more interest in terms of membership. Folks are maybe even working from the club remotely, and that's definitely had an impact on memberships. And it's not just in the Northeast. It's really, I think,
Sure.
something we're experiencing all over the country, which is
Right.
great.
Right.
Seeing a resurgence of golf, was one of the first activities that people could engage in the midst of the pandemic. That's really had a positive impact on the golf sector.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, probably, as bad as the pandemic was in so many ways, like for this sport of golf, at least, and even tennis and yachting and things, all those have done really well. So it's been great for clubs in general. Have
Mhm.
you guys also seen an influx of new members at the NCA as well?
Yes, we have. We're in the midst of a record growth period this year, and it's great to have these clubs joining the National Club Association and seeing the value that the NCA brings to clubs around the country.
Yeah.
It's there's definitely strength in numbers, and not unlike any club around the country, we're all stronger when membership is strong. So
Right.
yeah, we're definitely seeing an uptick in folks that are interested in being part of the National Club Association.
And the great thing I love about our industry is, in other industries, I don't know if it would be the same, but clubs really banded together, not only to help each other, but to really help their communities at large. Because,
Mhm.
even though, so many struggling small businesses out there, and clubs really stepped up to the plate. You're actually wearing a Clubs Help hat.
I am
Um,
indeed.
so let's talk about Clubs Help and how the NCA has been involved with that over the last year or so.
Sure. Well, as you know, Clubs Help was really started organically out of New Jersey from a club in Springbrook. And the NCA was part of, an early adopter, if you will, and really stepped in to help with Clubs Help. And we had a series of webinars throughout the pandemic, and we did have one specifically on Clubs Help. And Clubs Help is really, an organization, as I said, that started organically from a club that was trying to help first responders and the hospitals that were really inundated with COVID cases, and to try to help ease some of the stress there by providing meals and personal protective equipment that was in short supply. And that sort of really evolved into a more uh, you know community-based approach. So not necessarily just helping hospitals, but clubs looking around their communities and seeing what organizations need the assistance and how they can help. My club, Mount Vernon Country Club, was among the first clubs that joined, and we partnered with the hospital in our area, and we're seeing that across the country, and it's a great example of how clubs can really benefit their communities, and the NCA is proud to be a part of that.
Oh man, that's fantastic. It's been so wonderful to see. It's why we're in the best industry in the world, I think. And it's
Absolutely.
great that we've got friends in Washington D.C. like the National Club Association that keeps everything running smoothly and people up to date. You guys did such a great job with communication over the last year and a half plus. I mean, you've always been great, but you really stepped it up to keep people up to date on what was happening with all the new rollouts and guidelines and everything. So we applaud what you guys have done and thank you. All on behalf of the listeners here at Private Club Radio, we thank you for what you guys have done. If folks want to get involved with the NCA, learn more, maybe get active with what you guys are doing, what's the best way to do that, Joe?
Yeah, you can certainly get in touch with us on our website, nationalclub.org, and reach out. I think all of our emails, the staff's emails, are on the website. So feel free to reach out. You can contact me at Trauger, Trauger, at nationalclub.org, and happy to plug you in to what's going on.
Joe, thank you so much for your time, sir. It's wonderful to have you here again on Private Club Radio, and hope to do it very soon, man.
Sounds great. Appreciate it, Gabe.
Guys, thanks for joining us here on the Thursday episode of Private Club Radio. Again, we'll be back here on Tuesday on our normal scheduled time, but appreciate all the folks that are working hard in this industry to keep it running, to keep the members serving the members, and really to make it the best industry that it is. And thank you guys for tuning in here today, and we'll see you next time on another edition of Private Club Radio. See you soon. Bye-bye.